Hey everyone, welcome back to another Saturday live stream. I'm so excited to spend another day here doing Q&A or Ask Me Anything. I already see I have some questions coming in, so feel free to say hi in the chat. And now let's get started. So great to have you all here today. I already see some questions coming in, and I just wanted to go over a quick few little updates of some things going on. You may have, and I just want to start out with talking a little bit about YouTube, because that's primarily where I get a lot of my focus on, is on my YouTube channel. YouTube has recently rolled out a feature, and it's called YouTube Shorts. So they're YouTube short form videos. The funny thing, though, about the way that they rolled this out is they're supposed to be these tiny videos, kind of like Instagram Reels or TikTok. They want them to be 15 seconds, but you can do up to 60 seconds. And the interesting thing about YouTube Shorts is they go into your normal channel. So if you see videos that are coming up and popping up, like I did last week, where I was doing this announcement where it's like, hey, the AMA has updated the 2021 guidelines and provided some revisions or clarifications on them, and you're wondering, why the heck is Victoria putting up this 60-second video? Well, that's what it is. YouTube is starting to roll out these short form videos. So I'm starting to do some things with that, with some very quick things that I can do in 60 seconds. They ideally want them to be 15-second sections, but that's something that I think is a little bit difficult to do in a medical coding tips, tricks, tutorial type fashion. I think 15 seconds for a medical code, I can barely read out a code description in 15 seconds, let alone provide something that's a valuable piece of information to my viewers. So I wanted to start out with that. And I already see that Leah's in here asking some questions. I have CM ForceQ in here asking questions. It looks like viewership is down a little bit today, but that's all right. So we're here to talk today about medical coding. I also wanted to just plug a couple of things that I've got going on. If you haven't seen, I've been doing some sponsorships lately. I've been working with, hey, thanks, Marissa, for the thumbs up. So I've been doing some updates recently with some organizations. You may have seen that I've partnered with Harmony Healthcare. I've been working for a long time with onlinedegree.com. Well, actually, if you check out the front page today of nurse.org, I've been partnered with them as well. We've been working together on creating some content specifically for their platform. They've noticed that with the pandemic, there's a lot of nurses now that are potentially looking at some non-patient facing positions or some other things that they can do within healthcare to still utilize some of their skills, but stay within the healthcare field and utilize all of their knowledge. So I've partnered with nurse.org to make some contents to them to talk about how they can potentially migrate over to medical billing and coding, or if they're just interested, kind of what that would look like for those individuals. So you might see my face up on some videos on their channel as well. We're working on just a couple of different collaborations for them. So really excited to work with them on some of those videos. I love nurses. One of my best friends is a nurse, and I am just so incredibly jealous sometimes of just the vastness of clinical knowledge that she has. Also, I'm jealous of a lot of our CDI professionals as well because of that. I feel like their insights in the clinical process and disease process and things are just so much more above what I had to learn in professional coding. And I feel like I'm trying now to kind of play catch up in some ways. I have a question from Anissa. She's saying, are you an AHIMA trainer? So I'm not credentialed or organized by AHIMA. I actually don't have any currently AHIMA credentials, just through the AAPC. So I can teach, or rather I can purchase the licensed materials for any credentials that I have through the AAPC. So currently I am licensed for CPC and CRC. I have CRC, Certified Risk Adjustment Coder stuff on my website. CPC, I'm hoping to get together for April, but I still have to record that whole cardiovascular chapter and get that together. And that is a beast, you guys, an absolute beast. So to get that all recorded, edited, and down, case studies and stuff I like to include. So that's something to get through. Eventually, I will be teaching probably CPMA and possibly some others. I know there's been lots of requests for me to do auditing courses as well. So I have the first question that I have that came in, and it actually came in a little while ago. It's from Leah, and it says, what are some of the other titles besides medical coder biller that a CPC can search when looking for a job in that area? And then she asked if I can cover some things about CEUs and the different ways you can get them. So let's tackle that first area. So there's some other key terms that you could type into Indeed.com, things maybe like revenue cycle or concepts like that, I think could definitely go into Indeed.com. One of the things I like to say is that if there's specific organizations in your area that you want to work, like you have certain healthcare systems or hospitals, go through their entire job board and filter out and check and see where they put their coding positions, because some will put them under support, some will put them under administrative, some will put them under finance, and find out where they kind of keep those type of positions and keep an eye out for that. You can also even search for terms like CPT or ICD-10-CM, so because that will pull up any jobs that in the description want someone to have the knowledge of CPT or ICD-10-CM coding, and that will help filter in some of the job descriptions where they're looking specifically for medical coders that have coding skills. My buddy Rick Solomon's in here. He's saying that cardiology chapter should have its own credential. Absolutely. The cardiology is just something else. I mean, my hat's off to all the cardiology coders, because I can't tell you how many times I've come across a question about the blood flow of the heart. And every time I see one, I have to look it up in my book. And there is a diagram actually in your CPT book that shows you the blood flow of the heart, because if you ask me to recite it off the top of my head, there's just no way I could get it done. As far as CEUs, the other thing you can do, and I like to I can pull up the AAPC website. So one of the things you can check, and I don't like to bring it up with my stuff pulled in. If you go under, and of course it'll look different when you're logged in. I believe it's under, is it certification? No, maybe it's not going to pull up. Here we go. Under the education tab, and I'll move myself out of the way so you can see what I'm looking at. Under the education tab here, when you click on continuing education, it'll give you all the information that you need to know about CEUs. So you can search for CEUs in your area. It'll tell you how much CEUs you need. So here's your CEU information for members. And that's where you can find out how many CEUs are due and when they're due. It'll also have when you're personally due on your AAPC account. So also keep in mind with CEUs, I've had quite a few people come to me saying that they think there was an issue with their account because all of a sudden their CEU due date has changed. And that does happen if you go onto a corporate account. So oftentimes when you go into a large healthcare organizations, they have corporate accounts that they have maybe 10, 15, 20 seats for coders. And they, as they get coders in and out, will just plug your member ID number into that seat that they have to pay for your membership. But that prorates you so that your membership will renew when that whole corporate bucket that they have is due. So in those cases that you might have CEUs due sooner or later or less or more of the CEU. So it's important to pay attention to that when that changes. Same thing if it comes off of a corporate membership. So this recently happened to me that I was taken off of a corporate membership and then my CEU allotment that I was due changed. So ways to get some free CEUs, hitnots.com has a great listing. I'm not sure, they were having some bugs in their system, so be very, very careful when you click on links. I know they might still be working some things out because they were recently the victim of some sort of cyber attack where the links were popping up some other things. And the tricky thing was it was showing you the right link, but then something else popped up. So that's where it got a little bit difficult. But hitnots.com has CEUs. You can go to your local chapters. I go to a couple chapters in my area. I mean, even before the virtually, I would travel out when Philadelphia would have their conference. It was maybe like an hour and a half away from me. I'd go to Lancaster, I'd go to Reading, I'd go to Allentown. So you can go to virtual chapter meetings now and oftentimes get free CEUs. It's typically the stance of the AAPC to not, chapter hop to every single chapter, because some of them may only have capacity through their accounts to hold maybe 100 members, and they don't want their personal chapter members to get booted out because they just had so many people coming and visiting in virtually. So that's a way you can get CEUs. CMS offers CEUs. I have a couple of free CEUs on my website. I should probably flip over. I have a couple of free CEUs on my website that you can check out. I'm trying to think. I like Billing and Coding Advantage magazine. It's not free, but it is a cheaper way, and they offer so much stuff. There's also some Facebook groups that you can join. If you go into Facebook and type in AAPC CEUs, I think there's a couple that'll pop up, and you will see it occasionally. People, I hate to use the word spam, but they'll kind of go, hey, I have a free CEU course, check it out, check it out, check it out. So that's definitely some options that you can look into. Even things, I did a whole video about this. I was surprised to find out that there are certain continuing medical education units that will actually also qualify for CEUs. If maybe you're in an organization where they have CMEs for providers, but maybe not necessarily CEUs for coders, they could potentially cross over. Echo is asking, is it possible to get a coding job from just a certificate with no other experience? So yeah, I think it absolutely is. Let's click that one off real quick. So yeah, I think there's a lot of coders that I have seen that just get their certificate and get medical coding jobs. I think depending on what you're looking for, what the job atmosphere is like in your area, I think it does look a little bit better if maybe you went through like a 9-month program versus just, I went through this 1 week, 2 week, 3 week thing and quick passed my certification exam, because that shows you went through at least some kind of regimen. Like I took a medical terminology class, and then I took ICD-10, and you can show that you demonstrated some proficiency. You have instructors then potentially that can back you up and say, oh yeah, this was a great student. I definitely think you should hire this person. So I think that would look a little bit better, but yeah, there's plenty of coders who have gotten a job just from their certificate with no other experience. My personal background, I did not start out in healthcare. I did a lot of administrative work, a lot of filing and clerical stuff, went to school for medical coding, got into an internship program. I hate to say I got lucky, but I truly feel like I did, because the timing was right when so many private practices were getting acquired by larger healthcare organizations and hospitals. So while they were getting acquired, they needed more administrative staff. And part of that administrative staff was their entire revenue cycle. So they were hiring a lot of people at that time. And I kind of got just swept up in the hiring frenzy that they were doing to support all of these providers that they had just acquired and contracted. Mallory is asking, out of curiosity, is there a difference between your CRC class and the AAPC CRC class? So there is. The AAPC's curriculum, so I licensed the AAPC's curriculum. So a lot of it is the same content. I would say maybe 80% of the slides are about the same. There's a lot more that I edit into mine. There's even a video that I just recorded that I'm adding in to update it, where I just talk about ICD-10-CM books and the different versions that we have of ICD-10-CM books. And I talk to you about like what an Optum book looks like, what the AAPC book looks like, what you might want to look for when you're purchasing an ICD-10-CM book, which ones are good for the CRC exam, how to notate your book. I have an extra whole chapter on test tips. There's extra slides I added in. There's parts where I actually walk you through the code book and go, here's what you look up. And when you see diabetes and you see the term with, and I just actually like I'm doing now, I open up my code book and we go and we flip through and we follow things together. Obviously not showing the entirety of my code book because that wouldn't be right to do. But we walk through some code lookup together so that you can see as I'm doing it, like how we look things up. And then there's also some, for the second half of the ones, I'm now adding in, I actually just re-recorded everything and I'm editing it and going to update. Hopefully by the end of the month, I can get it done. But The other cool thing I do is I have a couple of questions that I walk through with you on the chapters as well. So we go through a couple of sample cases and talk through them as well. So it's different in that fashion, and that it basically is run kind of like I'm doing now. Like you can see my screen, you can see me in the corner as the slides are going through. So it's just a little bit more interactive, but it is a good amount of the same technically content, like the slides are the same. Hey, Pollinary, good to have you here today on the stream. Eli Smith, good to see you here too, coming in from LinkedIn. Mary, thank you for the comment. That really helps me out. So yeah, Mary just passed her CRC. You just got the notification. What was it, like 2 days ago that you passed yours? So another thing I can mention to you, and this is a cool announcement kind of leading into some stuff. I just redid my website, so it looks so much cleaner right now. I didn't like the way it was kind of spread, and then other things looked kind of different. But if you see it this way now, like it looks so much better. So everything's much more clean. You can get the link here to the online courses. Here's all the videos, links to tips, tricks, and tutorials to my YouTube channel, and then all the merchandise that I have, the little cute little saying t-shirts and mugs. And if you go into my courses, so I offer currently 3 CRC options depending on what you need. And there was a question up here, and I can talk about that kind of as I'm going on it. Someone was asking about can they study for their CRC on your own? Yeah, absolutely. You can self-study. I would really recommend the study guide. And I have an option specifically for people who are self-studying and bought the study guide, and they just kind of want a little something else. And that is this CRC review class, which is basically just condensed like 3 hours of material and then a practice examination. And I custom built this practice examination. So I looked at the CRC material, looked at what it is that they're kind of trying to pull out of you when they're testing for these exams, things about the guidelines, specifically things like, I know they test a lot on diabetes. I know they test a lot on hypertension. So those kind of things that I know the concepts that they're looking to pull and formulated into a practice exam and a review. So you can get that. The boot camp, I'm going to be running that April 10th and 11th, and that's for coders who are already trained in ICD-10-CM. They already know insurance. They already know MedTerm, so they can just kind of skip that part of the curriculum and really focus on what is risk adjustment, what are the different models, what's the RADV audits, and that's what that boot camp does, and it's live. So it's 2 half days of me, and we interact and all kinds of stuff on Zoom. And then the full course is what I offer then for the CRC credential preparation. So I have 3 different options right now. And also, if you go on here, if you scroll to the bottom, it'll actually open up a couple of the CEU courses that I have for free right now. The risk adjustment coding one, I'm probably gonna, my renewal date is due. Oh gosh, my renewal date is due at the end of April. So I might at the end of April take this out and replace it with something else and have that be the new one versus keeping that one and just renewing it. Because I think, I want to refresh the material now that it's been, I think, like 2 years since I made that particular free CEU offering. Yeah, Pam says that the boot camp was wonderful. Pam attended my boot camp and really enjoyed it. So yeah, if you're interested, definitely check it out. It's all up on the website now, contempocoding.com, and it does include the live sessions. Do you have to be CPC certified to earn CEUs? Yeah, so once you become a CPC, you can only earn CEUs from the date you become a CPC and onward. So let's say I passed my CPC March 15th. If I finished a course on March 14th, I can't count that because I acquired it before I got my CPC. So if you have something that maybe is a webinar or something, it would only be able to get added to your CEUs from your credential date and forward. Katie Jennings is asking, best advice for someone trying to get a coder job without any prior medical experience. So that I would highly suggest you go out and get your resume looked at and professionally done, because some of these people can really pull out the material that will highlight what is going to be pertinent to other healthcare hirers that are going to what they're going to look at in order to want to hire you. So if you go actually onto my channel, I have a video that I just did recently and got some really great feedback on. You can find it. Let's see here. We'll switch over. It's this one right here. It has a big old hired sticker on it and the little medical coding name tag, employee name tag. And that's my how to find a medical coding job in 2021. And that is all of my best tips that I have for how to find a medical coding job, including if you don't have any prior medical experience. Carolyn asks, I want to be a cardiology coder. Should I get the cardiology certificate with the AAPC if I already have CPC and CCS? So if you want to become a cardiology coder and you're not currently working in cardiology, I think it might be a good idea in that case to get the extra credential, because it will demonstrate to any employers that are looking to hire you for a cardiology position that you've demonstrated some proficiency, right? At least they know that if you have that credential, that you've been able to answer some questions about cardiology coding. You've demonstrated that you have invested interest, you've invested your time, you've been able to successfully pass that examination. So while it might not necessarily guarantee a cardiology position, it will certainly place you in a better spot to get a cardiology specific position. I have a question. Is there a way to make reading diagnosis codes easier to find when you're reading the narratives? I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, as far as just reading the descriptions of the diagnosis codes, or when you're talking about like looking them up in the alphabetic index. If you could just kind of let me know what you're referring to there, like in the alphabetic index, looking them up, like knowing what to look up there, or if you're knowing like how to look them up in the tabular list. Faith is asking about, when am I going to schedule my CPC course to begin? You're ready? Yeah, I want to make sure that I have all of the material together before I start selling it. And I'm still finishing up some of my CRC stuff. I have, I think, 4 chapters of CPC that I want to record so that I can make sure that I'm ready and we can launch the April class. Also, I did have another follow-up conversation. There was an organization that was interested in potentially hiring me to run the CPC course through them. And I was a little apprehensive because I'm like, I kind of want to do my own thing. So I'll have to look at my calendar, because I really need to just set myself, I think, a date for that and get it going. What I'm hoping to do also is, because it's the first run that I will be doing CPC, I'll probably bring it in for a smaller class at a lower price, just because it is going to be kind of beta tested. So when I build a whole course, oftentimes what happens is there might be a quiz that has a wrong question on it, or a video that maybe, usually the videos are good, but maybe an assignment that duplicated or something, and you got 2 questions and not the right answers. So because of that, I really need people to look at that and kind of beta test it and give me that feedback and say, hey, Victoria, the attachment isn't on this one chapter. Can you add it in? So I might bring in maybe like a limited amount of people at a lower price and say, hey, just know this is the first run. This is kind of the beta test. So I'll bring you in at a lower price, but you have to understand that I need that feedback so I can get the course up to where it really needs to be in order to be a premier package going forward. Is the CPC exam a one-time testing? Does it need to be renewed every so often? So with the CPC exam, once you pass and you are a CPC, you are a CPC as long as you continue to renew your AAPC membership. So once you get it the first time, you're allowed to be a student and get in at the lower student price that one time. But after that, you have to pay for your full price, which is, I believe, right now $190. If you fail at any point to pay your membership, they usually give you about a 30-day period to kind of flex in there. But once that's expired and you lose your membership, you also lose any associated credentials that you have with the AAPC. So it's really important to stay on top of when your membership renewal dates are and when you are when your CEUs are due, when everything is due, because you don't want to accidentally lapse in membership. And that's another important reason why you want to make sure too that your email is up to date on the AAPC's website, because what happens to some people is they'll have their email listed to their company email and they wind up no longer working at that company. They forget to update their email address in the system, and all of those emails that are saying, hey, don't forget to pay your membership dues in the next 30 days. Otherwise, you're going to, term and you might lose your credentials. They're going to a dead email address. You don't want that to happen. So it's important to make sure your email is either up to date, or I just suggest, use your personal email address for your AAPC updates, because then you'll always have them. And if you want to pull something up that you had prior years and it was in that old employer's email box, you no longer have access to that anymore. So it's really good to have something that's in your personal email account versus a company email account. Mallory, that is so sweet. I absolutely love you for leaving this comment. Mallory says, thank you for all you do. All your videos have helped me and inspired me to take this leap and completely forever change my career. That is so awesome, Mallory. Congratulations. So let me know, are you currently taking courses? Are you enrolled? Are you getting ready? Are you like switching over? Are you in healthcare and you're making the switch over to medical coding? Let me know. I'm really curious. Paula, I just want to let you know too, you are going to nail that CPC exam. When you go and take it, let me know, because I'm betting you're going to get way better right now. So much better. Yeah. Let's see what else I got here in the chat. So updates for videos that are coming up. Some of the things that I've been asked to do a lot of stuff about HCCs. So I do have plans to do a video about HCC coding, what it is, what that looks like, where do HCC coders work, as well as I was asked, I get a lot of questions about my laminated scorecards. So I'm going to do a whole instructional video that just shows you how to print them out, how to make the laminated scorecards so that everyone can make them on their own at home and to their heart's content, and just a really good kind of step-by-step tutorial for that. I've been asked to how to learn MedTerm and anatomy for medical coding, because I actually have there's a lot of really cool free resources out there that can be used. So I think there's some just pointing that I can do in those directions. I also ordered a couple of books that I've heard are really good, and I'm going to take a look at those and see how they look for MedTerm and anatomy. Also, I recently did a podcast about what to do after you fail the CPC exam, and I'm putting that into a video as well. I also just did, oh gosh, is it up in here? I don't know that it is. But I just did some cute TikToks and Instagram reels. So if you're not following me on TikTok or Instagram, definitely check that out, because there's been some really cute videos that I've been doing lately that have just been kind of funny. Oh, Courtney, you're so sweet too. I just found you and you've helped me to breathe. I'm currently in AAPC courses and have been so stressed out. Thank you for being so awesome. No, thank you for being awesome, because I'm glad that you came in here and took the time out to leave such nice comments. But yeah, I've been asked if there's other channels like mine that do PCS coding, because I don't do PCS coding. I've only done professional coding and some risk adjustment, but I really don't know what the equivalent is of my channel in the inpatient setting. And if I find someone, I will definitely let you know. I know Huang does some great videos on CPC prep. Everyone says that his are so good. I think there's the Queen of Guidelines everyone's liked for so long. And then there's also, oh gosh, I know people like AMCI. Dr. Campbell, I don't know if Dr. Campbell does PCS, because I know she is more clinical, so she might. So she might be one to check out. But yeah, Dr. Campbell does some great videos too. They're really super, super informative. Susan says, can you please do more videos on modifiers? I absolutely can. And you know what else, Susan? The other thing I can tell you is that if you go over to my website, I have a free course that you can take on modifiers. If you're not certified yet, you can't get the CEUs for it, but that doesn't mean you can't get the knowledge from it, right? So you can go right here. Modifiers for the medical office is one that I have that is covers a lot of modifiers that are just used in the medical office, maybe not so much anesthesia or surgery, but things that are, you know, if you're doing an office procedure and an E&M on the same day, if you're seeing post-op and you have to split out the post-op from the surgery, if it's an unusual circumstance. So a lot of the more office-based ones. So that's definitely something you can check out. It's an hour-long stuff about, you know, a lot of the modifiers that are used commonly in the medical office. Mallory, I see you and you are so wonderful. I can't even stand it. Why is this one stuck? I think my videos are stuck. There we go. Took my CPC exam on the 10th and still waiting for results. Well, I hope that the wait will be worth it. I know it seems like, I think what's affecting everything right now is these postal delays. And it's just unfortunate, not just the postal delays, but I mean, those postal delays will influence a lot of other things. It's almost like a domino effect, it seems, right? That one thing gets delayed and then the next thing gets delayed. So I'm sure they're having a hard time. Plus, I know the AAPC in general tends to a lot of things that they're usually right on top of when it's getting down to HealthCon, which is happening next week, soon, like 10 days or something like that. As soon as it starts getting towards HealthCon, a lot of other stuff just slows down a little bit because so much focus from the organization has to go into packing all of their stuff and making sure the speakers are in line and the CEUs are in line. So not that that helps helps you feel any better about your exam still sitting there. But yeah, it does. I have noticed right around when HealthCon happens, things like even CEU approvals that may have in the past taken like 1 or 2 days start taking like 3-4 days because of just the shift of the focus on all the stuff going on for HealthCon. Sheena says, will you be doing a CPMA or COC bootcamp? I will be. I am still, so my focus right now is I'm updating the CRC content that I have, and not because there's a ton of changes, but because of, I think, just technology changes that I personally have, that I can get the audio a little bit better, that I can have things transition a little bit better, I can show demonstrations a little bit better. So I'm redoing it because of that purpose, not because there's anything really necessarily wrong or outdated with the content. Funny story I can kind of tell you guys is when I was recording originally my CRC course, I was not living where I am now. I was staying with my father. My mother had passed away and my dad had asked me to move back home, and I was there for a while. And I didn't really have quiet space there because everyone was packed in. My daughter was there. I was in my bedroom. I didn't have an office. So I borrowed space from people. I had a couple of instances where I was able to, I think, throw up a green screen or something behind me and record and put in a virtual background of like a bookshelf. And then I had a friend who offered to let me use some space in the hospital in what we refer to as the secret library, which was, I guess, donated by some hospital donors at some point and was not used other than there was these like medical books from the 80s and some old computers in the background. And she's like, yeah, you can use this space if you want to sit here and record your course. So I recorded part of the course in the secret medical library in the hospital. So now it's just going to look a lot more consistent once it's updated. Do I think that HealthCon will offer virtual next year as well? So here's what I'm hoping. I do think that from now on, they are going to go into this hybrid model. I think not just even the AAPC, all conferences in general. I think more and more conferences are going to be dual, that they'll be in person as well as virtual. But what I'm hoping for is that once we are at HealthCon next year, I want to be the person who's like running around with a microphone, like interviewing people and showing everything live that's going on, so that it's not only just like a virtual experience, but like you can kind of see what's going on in the hallways, and you can see what's kind of going on behind the scenes, and be able to feed that into the virtual environment as well. I think that would just be like super cool and fun. You know, I personally have gone to a lot of video game conventions and anime conventions and comic book conventions. And while I know we're in a professional environment, I think there are some cute little elements that we can pull out of those type of scenarios and bring them into medical coding. Another interesting story. So my sister used to run a video game convention in the Philadelphia area. And when it was smaller, like 1,000 or 2,000 people, she would have me run the entire front registration. So people would come up and they'd give their $15 or their registration form or whatever. And I would sit there and go, oh, okay, yeah, we'll come over here. And Artist Alley is over that way. And the fields are over there. And if you want to shop, that's over that way. And the angry video game nerd is coming. And he's going to be coming at 2 o'clock, because that was the big question. They would have like people come in, this guy, the angry video game nerd. And one day he was late one year. And I had this guy like standing at the registration booth the whole time going, is the angry video game nerd here yet? Is the angry video game nerd here yet? And I'm like, he's late. Thank you, Susan Keene, for joining membership. I feel like I should have another like, I'm told that there's ways I can program the lights behind me, as well as my like other things in here. Like I could probably have my aromatherapy thing. It's off camera, but I could have like maybe the lights change and stuff based off of when people subscribe or have super chats. For those of you that aren't aware, I do have a membership attached to my YouTube channel. It is absolutely not a requirement to enjoy all of the content that you are seeing on the YouTube channel. Everyone can go in there and access it publicly for free. But for those that do want to pay for membership, I have different tiers from $1.99 to $9.99. So everyone gets, if you're a paid member, access to community only posts. Sometimes I post funny videos there, or post little cute little comments, or just polls or information just for community members. At the gold and platinum membership levels, you get access to have your name added to the video. At platinum level, you actually get behind the scenes content. So you can see photos from behind the scenes. You can see videos from behind the scenes. Sometimes I do these outtake videos where I show me like messing up my video behind the scenes, and there's like little clips and sounds and all kinds of cute stuff that happens. So that's for our platinum memberships. But again, you don't have to join channel membership if you don't want. But if you do, I would really appreciate it, because it helps support me, it helps support the channel, and you also get some cool stuff then in addition to that. I just started my studies, and I noticed the program I'm with is focusing heavily on the law side of coding, and I'm wondering how much it really affects day-to-day coding. So as far as day-to-day, probably, let me get rid of my ticker there. As far as day-to-day, probably not so much, because one would hope, that you would not encounter legal problems every single day, right? So I think it's important to understand the ethics. I think it's important to also understand what to do when you're in a dilemma where you've noticed that there is maybe a problem with the billing, and you've informed, you know, your manager, your compliance officer, gone up the chain, and nothing maybe seems to happen, to know if you report something out to the OIG, where you would do that, what those whistleblower laws look like, what that might mean in terms of you. But as far as day-to-day, I would hope you would not be encountering a lot of legal issues necessarily from day-to-day coding. I think day-to-day is more the general knowledge of things like, hey, if you see your neighbor's record as you're sitting there and coding, don't go over to your neighbor's house and knock on their door and go, hey, I heard that you're, having a diabetes flare-up or something like that. And, don't share private health information with people. Excuse me one second. Yeah, it's getting a little bit of a tickle in my throat there. I apologize for that. Would you recommend your E&M course for someone who is yet to sit for their CPC exam? I think it would be good because one of the things I do talk about in that course is the difference of E&M and how they test now for the office and outpatient visits specifically. I was actually wrong on my early call about this. I thought because for years the CPC exam had said, here's your level of history, here's your level of exam, here's your level of medical decision making, pick the code. I thought for sure that they were just going to continue that and go with medical decision making. Here's your level of risk, here's your amount of data reviewed, here's your amount of, all that other stuff, and just have you pick the code. But based off of the updates to the curriculum, based off of the practice questions that I got from the licensed material, they're actually more so looking for you to score out the actual office and outpatient visits. So from that aspect, oh, look, thank you, Rick, for your support becoming a member. You just want to see me do this, I think, is what it is. And so, yeah, I think those are some important concepts to know. And E&M is just so incredibly hot this year. One of the first things I said when I decided to go from working full-time as an auditor to go full-time now self-employed as an instructor and doing occasional, projects and stuff, maybe consulting here on the side. One of the things I said to everyone is, you know what, if it doesn't work out, there's going to be absolutely no shortage of E&M auditing positions in 2021 with all of these guideline changes. So I think it would be definitely something to look into. I don't push anyone into purchasing my courses. I just want to tell you what it does. If this is something that you think will benefit you, then that's when I encourage it. Brian saying, I think my question posted when your chats froze. Let me see if I can go back up. Brian, I think I'll see what I got up here. My chats froze. I do not remember my chats freezing, but let me take a look here. But yeah, Brian, I don't know if I'm not seeing your question in here. So if you wouldn't mind just putting it in again, because it looks like maybe my chats did freeze because I'm not seeing anything in here. Oh, wait. Here we go. Is this the question? Will your oh, here we go. Okay, I just missed it. Will your CRC course be beneficial for me after I finish my AAPC CPC course and then take the CPC and CRC certification exams? I'm complicated. There are so many coders right now that I am seeing, and I don't think this is a terrible mindset to take, but they're like, well, if I'm going for one credential, I'm going to go for two, right? And I think that makes sense because if you're already in that mindset that you're already studying and things are more fresh in your memory, I think that is a great time to go for your CPC and your CRC at the same time. It kind of depends, though, on what you're looking for. If you're looking to get into risk adjustment, if you want to work with ICD-10-CM, you want to work with diagnoses, then yeah, that makes more sense. But there are some coders that maybe are more geared towards, like, I want to just be more marketable to revenue cycle in general. So I think in those cases, a lot of coders, if they can't get a job that is titled as a coder, they can get somewhere else in the revenue cycle, like in billing. So in those cases, if you have your CPB and your CPC, that I think is a great scenario to cast a very wide net and make yourself more marketable to almost the entire revenue cycle so that you could do billing, you can do coding. And I think that would be a great way to go. But if you love ICD-10-CM, risk adjustment, and one of the things that I think is so interesting when they are hiring for risk adjustment coders for these projects is they're not looking for like, oh, we need 2-3 coders. It's like we need 50, 60, 70 coders, and we need to bring them on and train them to work on this, 9-month project, 12-month project. The other thing I'm starting to see that I love so much is more organizations now are starting to recognize that they have bonuses, that they have increases that are based off of these quality programs. And what feeds into those quality programs, other than just the quality metrics, of course, is their diagnosis coding. Saying, hey, yeah, we've got all these patients with congestive heart failure, with HIV, with cancer, and we're doing a really good job. We're doing a really good job keeping them healthy, keeping them out of the hospital, keeping costs down, and that can help feed into their feed into their, sorry, I just had a troll come in and I got distracted there for a second. But that can help feed into their reimbursement. So a lot more healthcare organizations are hiring coders specifically to work on the provider's diagnosis coding, look at the documentation, review it, and make sure that everything is really up to snuff, that the providers are not just picking diabetic neuropathy, but only documenting diabetes, that everything's kind of matching up. So yeah, Brian, if you want to focus on CRC, that's the other thing. I get a lot of questions, you know, can I just go right to being a CPB or to a CRC? Can I just take my CCC if you just want to work in cardiology? There's no requirement that the AAPC has that you have to get one credential before another. There's no specific order, no specific requirements. So if you just want to go for your CRC, you can do that. I know quite a few coders that are actually just CRCs. They don't have any other coding credentials. You can go for your CRC and then circle back and get your CPC. It really depends on what your focus is. Oh, this is a fantastic feedback. Thank you so much for Melissa for posting this. She says she just took her CEMC. They want you to code outpatient with 95 and 97 guidelines, and they will switch the question up then by saying, now code the same scenario with the 2021 guidelines. That is really fascinating to know. I think that's a very helpful tip. And yeah, I could see where that would be beneficial, because we're still going to have coders that are looking at notes from 2020 where there's a different set of guidelines. So we can't just, yeet those guidelines and leave them out there. We still have to know those guidelines and how to code that same note. If it was done in 2020, right? Because we're still going to be doing audits. We're still going to be looking at all kinds of stuff for a few years. So yeah, I could definitely see where they would want to do that. And that's fantastic. Thank you so much for that feedback. Would you recommend entry-level coders work in an office setting while fully learning the way of the land? Absolutely. I am a very big proponent of foot in the door type jobs. Reason being is, if an employer already has you in their system, the majority of employers will have to favor an internal candidate versus an external candidate, because you're already on payroll. They've already got benefits established for you. And even if you're just working in something like registration or scheduling, you get familiar with their systems. You get familiar with physician names. So you know how to do a little bit of stuff in the EMR. You know how to do a little bit of stuff in their, email systems. You know some of the provider names. You're familiar with where the practices might be. So anything you can do to get a foot in the door, even if it's just front desk registration, scheduling, anything like that, definitely is going to be beneficial. And even when you start getting familiar with, if like you see papers that have certain studies on them or certain test results, or you get familiar with the way that the printouts look, like that all is extremely beneficial. I had one coder that I hired who I think was working in like I think as a registrar in the hospital, that he was going around registering patients, but he came so highly recommended from one of the providers that was working at the hospital doing in the emergency department. And this was a prominent provider. And he said, yeah, you have to hire this guy because he's phenomenal. He's so good. He's a dedicated worker. And at that point, he was still just studying to become a medical coder. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, there's no question in my mind, because he came so well recommended from the provider. Even though he wasn't working in coding, he was just a very, very good, dedicated worker. Have you considered making a video of the typical medical coder's work from home day is like? I actually did. It is a slightly older video on my channel. Let me see if I can find it. I think I even have like a funny section of it where it shows me like rolling out of bed with my hair a mess and my coffee is all messed up. Let's see if I can find it in here. Yeah, it's a day in the life of a remote coder, work from home, set up expectations and tools. And I think I do have it in here. Let's see if it is. Oh yeah, you can see me all messed up here and like making my coffee, and I'll turn the volume down. You can see me making my coffee. and then getting up and yeah, here's me like in my pajamas talking on the phone. So there is a video of that up on my channel that you can check out. Yeah, there I am. That's a good one. You'll have to definitely go check it out. Heather, hey, yeah, I would be happy to come out and speak at the Lancaster chapter. Let me know. I'm not sure if you guys are doing in person or virtual, but either way, as long as everyone stays away from me, that sounds so terrible. But as long as everyone keeps their social distance in Lancaster, I can definitely hop on out and get over to the Lancaster chapter. Just send me an email because I have a list of topics that I have available. Courtney's asking, question about ICD-10-CM. When do we use status codes from the external cause index? So status codes are your Z codes. External cause codes aren't always necessarily status codes. So status codes are things like outcome of delivery, if the patient's having a physical exam. External causes are more so your accidents, injuries, place of occurrence. So for example, a status code might be a patient is coming in and they have a status of being homeless. An external cause is more a patient that has a fracture, and we want to know the who, what, where, when, why, and how that fracture happened. And the reason they do that is because when we see a lot of things like injuries or accidents, we want to make sure that the correct insurance is paying for that. So if we send something to Highmark that says a patient broke their arm, Highmark's going to go, okay, how did this patient break their arm? Because if they broke it in their car, auto insurance is going to pay for it. If they broke it at work, their work insurance, their workers' comp should be paying for it. So that's when those external causes kind of come into play, so that it paints that better picture to the insurance that if they see, hey, this happened in an automobile accident, that it was a transport vehicle that hit a pedestrian or something, they can get that information from that external cause and go, send it to the auto insurance. That's not medical insurance. Or if the place of occurrence or external cause happened at in jail or something, at school, they know who that liability kind of lies with. Oftentimes you'll see that from insurances that they'll want those, particularly, I want to say it's emergency department, usually wants the external causes, the who, what, where, when, why, and how of how that injury occurred. Marianne, yeah, if you guys need a speaker, I'm happy to speak at chapters. So one thing I will tell you guys about my chapter presentations, I have personally limited myself to do 2 chapter presentations a month. So if you're specifically looking for someone to do like April or May, I might already be booked. I'm not 100% sure. But the only reason I tend to limit myself is because chapter meetings oftentimes are in the evening. And that's my time to usually be with my family and have dinner. And because I have, if I'm doing 6 chapter meetings in a month, plus board meetings and calls and, other things that come up, that's a lot of evenings to spend away from my family. And so I try to, just for my work-life balance, limit myself to 2. So not that I ever turn anyone away. It's just that I might have to book you out a little bit further if you're looking for something. And sometimes I'll actually do 3 if I have maybe 2 already booked and someone's like, well, we're having a conference on a weekend. Okay, that's fine. Like I don't have anything to do on a Saturday. I'll be happy to come and speak at a Saturday seminar or something. Or even if it's in the middle of the day, it's just that it gets tricky when it's too many evenings because of the whole work-life balance thing and my whole family. I'm a mom. So that means I'm responsible for just about everything in the house, right? Anything that goes wrong, I have to make sure it gets fixed, corrected, all the food gets bought, cooked up, the whole house gets cleaned. So even though everyone, I feel like, sees me sometimes as this fancy self-employed entrepreneur, I'm like, I still gotta vacuum the floors and scrub the baseboards like everybody else. Hey, glad to see you're here. Yeah, I hope all is well with you too. Ultra, you've been watching. Yeah, Ultra Swaz. Ooh, it's a fancy name. So I've been watching your videos. Thank you so much. It's very helpful. Now I have to schedule the CPC exam for next month. Any advice? So I have, I'm not sure where you are, if you want to do if they're offering in person where you are, or if you're going online. But if you're having trouble choosing between in person or online, I do have videos that talk about what both of those look like. I also have a video that is the how to pass the CPC exam in 2021. So that's something you should definitely check out, because I kind of give some of my best tips and tricks for how to get your speed up, how to do practice exams, how to kind of piece apart the questions that they might ask you, how to strategize about some of those. This is a good question. I have my CPC exam tomorrow. What's a good tip to keep me alert and focused for the entire 5 to 6 hours? So it's kind of tough, because you want to say things like caffeine, but you also have to consider the fact that if you're going to be drinking a lot of coffee before the exam, then 2 hours in, you're probably going to want to go to the bathroom, and they're not going to stop the clock for you going to the bathroom. One thing I can say is there is just a big mindset change that happens once they hear you hear them say start, and you open up your books and start flipping through your exams. Peppermints, I love if you have a hard candy or something that you can kind of chew on. I've I think when you're just sitting for your CPC, little snacks are good to take along to help keep you focused and help keep your blood sugars up and stuff. But in most cases, most coders that are just going in for their CPC exam for the first time are not going to sit down and like have a whole meal. I will admit that I've done that in the past with some of my certifications, because I think I was actually my CPMA that I took while I was pregnant with my daughter. And I had a good feeling that my pace would be okay. So I took like a whole packed lunch with me. But as someone who's also proctored the exams so many times, I have seen so many people that have packed like a whole refrigerator bag full of lunches and snacks. And once, you're in that mindset and you're going, they completely forget to eat anything. They're barely drinking their water. So you might think that you're going to have all this stuff that's going to help keep you awake, because you're going to be eating and drinking, and your focus, it will just switch right over. Some people will like earplugs. So you are permitted to bring earplugs. You're not allowed to bring, your AirPods or anything like that, because they can't tell if you're listening to music or if they're having someone feed you answers to a question. So just straight up earplugs are fine, but you can't bring any kind of other devices. You're also not allowed to bring, your phone, your Fitbit. All of that has to be out of the room or set aside, because you can't have anything that is able to transmit any sort of data or text or anything like that. Elizabeth, I'm glad you caught it too, but I'm sorry to say we're on our last 5 minutes. I don't know. Is everyone getting the alerts when the live comes up, or are you just kind of, I'm not sure, because I'm trying to keep as much as I can to 2 p.m. on Saturday, because I know that that's a good time for everyone. It's Saturday afternoon. Coders are off work. They can ask more questions. The problem that I think I'm going to start facing now is, as we're rolling into spring and summer, I have a feeling that my neighbor is probably going to think that 2 p.m. on Saturday is the best time in the world to mow his lawn. So we'll have to see how that goes. But I don't know. I was about to say he can't mow his lawn every weekend, but he sure as heck can. So we'll see how that goes. So here's the question. Marcy says, do you think they'll allow me to vape during my online CPC test? So with the online CPC test, they're very, very strict about this, actually. So you're not allowed to have anything on your desk but your code books and a beverage. So I do not believe they would allow that for the online CPC exam, because what will happen is, you can't have that on you. They'll probably tell you to stop. Now, it's only, 2 hours and change because it's broken into 2 parts. So chances are good you'll be okay between that. But yeah, you're only allowed your books and a beverage. So my desk here with all of my, earphones, my pens, my calendar, this would all have to be wiped clean for the online exam. Definitely check the instructions. I think there's been some people that have had complaints about the online exam, and the people who seem to have been better prepared for it, like really thoroughly read through the emails that the AAPC sent them so that they kind of know what they're supposed to be looking for. Hey there, Faraz. Good to see you here. Yeah, the nerves could be something else. So there's a difference between the online and the in-person. So if you take it online, so if I was just at my desk here taking the exam online now, just my books, just my beverage. If you're taking it in person, meaning you're going to a proctored exam site, have drinks, you can have beverages. I mean, they encourage you to not usually bring anything that is like a bag of chips that you're going to be crumpling and digging in and crunching, or, they would obviously not want you to bring, salmon in and start reheating your salmon in the exam room. But yeah, you're definitely allowed to, for the in-person exam, bring snacks and sweets and things like that. I've had people even call when I was hosting for my chapter. They've said like, "Hey, can I bring an extra lamp in?" And it's like a table lamp. Like, how much of a lamp are you trying to bring in? So if it's something that's a little bit more unusual than that, definitely check with your proctors. Oh, Mary Ellen, that is an awesome tip. Thank you for sharing that. So AAPC had a video about the online exam and even how to set up the webcam at a good spot. Yeah, if it was me, I'd probably be setting it up like my side cam over here so they can see like everything that's going on over here. So if you've ever been curious what my setup is like, this is what I do. I have my microphone, I have my lights, I have a second light over here. But yeah, this would all have to be gone in order for me to do the online exam, which is something that I'm going to have to consider because I do have a voucher for, I think the CPB, and I'm hoping to take that online at some point because I know they said that they're hoping to get the rest of the credentials, or a good amount of them, online within the second quarter. Although I know HealthCon, I always tell everyone HealthCon's when they like to make their announcement, so that's a good chance that they'll announce something over HealthCon. Yeah, Mary Ellen says they have to see your face, your hands, and your keyboard. So the online exam, they're pretty strict because they want to make sure that no one's compromising the integrity of the exam. Excuse me. Faraz says, I saw your videos. I got good knowledge. Please keep going. Your videos give positive vibes. You are great. One thing that I really want to do, and I have to be very strategic about this because I want to start doing more like CPC preps things and maybe break down a chapter, but I'm just not sure how to cover what is the pertinent things about, for example, the integumentary system within it being a shorter video, because if I make it long, it'll be like an entire course, right? And then I'll have no reason to sell courses because the entire thing will be on YouTube. So I'm trying to figure out how I can piece down like a chapter into a good like 20, 30 minutes maybe, and cover the essentials there, kind of like maybe a case study more type of thing. So that's something I'm planning to do. It just takes a while to kind of get that stuff together. I'm actually a couple minutes over, so I'm just going to go over a few more things. Does anyone know how long until you get the results of the exam? It is a little bit longer than usual right now. For online, I've heard 24, 48 hours. Some people have said more. In person, I think because of the mail delays, usually it's like 10 to 14 business days, but I think it might be right now a little bit more extended than that. I feel like there was one other thing I wanted to say that we were talking about in regards to online and the YouTube channel. Oh, so I've been getting questions lately from people that are looking to start their own YouTube channel, that they're like, oh, I love what you do and I want to do that too. And I think that is so cool that I'm inspiring other people to start YouTube channels. Some of them are specialty specific, and that's really cool. And I've had a couple of people reach out to me for information on kind of how I got subscribers, how I got popular. And while I to share with others, it kind of to me feels right now like I've perfected a recipe over a variety of years. And now I'm just opening my restaurant and starting to get customers. And I don't really want to share my secret recipe with everyone right now because I'm afraid I'm going to, lose all of my customers and my restaurant won't be successful and all that stuff. So, I spent a lot of time actually researching just YouTube and the platforms and stuff themselves. So it's a lot, but yeah, I think it's really great though to see some other channels popping up because I can't cover everything. So it's great to have other people out there. So with that, I just want to say thank you all so much for your constant support, for your likes and shares and subscribes. Really appreciate it, guys. I will be here next week for more questions and answers. Ask me anything. But for now, guys, hey, you just keep on coding on.